Okay, so I think we'll get started, and then if anybody else joins us, then we can catch them up as we go. So good afternoon, and thank you for attending this training webinar. My name's Amanda Madine, and I'm going to be leading today's session. It's focused on our Key Stage 4 package, and specifically the new NCFE specifications, which we've just released new resources for. The session's designed to give existing iAchieve customers information about the new specifications. So hopefully you're already familiar with the system, but I will give you a brief overview for those of you that have just started using iAchieve. Hopefully by the time we finish today, you'll have all the information you need to get set up and running successfully with the new specifications. But anything I don't cover that you were expecting me to cover, or anything I haven't covered in enough depth, there will be time for questions and answers at the end of the training session, and I would encourage you to ask anything you can think of. I'll start with a quick overview of what iAchieve is for those of you that aren't necessarily familiar with it just yet. That might be because perhaps your leadership team has bought into iAchieve for you and you've been asked to use it, or it might be because it's been used in a different area of your school and now you're using it to support your subject area, or perhaps you've taken over from a different member of staff that's previously used iAchieve. So I'll give you a quick overview so that you've got some context around what we're talking about today. If you are already familiar with iAchieve, thank you for your patience whilst we cover this briefly. Please just bear with me for a few moments. So what is iAchieve then? Well, it's a comprehensive delivery solution that supports the successful implementation and delivery of vocational and technical qualifications. How it is used depends on your learners and your specific context, and I'll tell you a bit more about that a bit later. But the purpose of iAchieve is to help you to run successful vocational programs that lead to good outcomes for your learners. So how does iAchieve do this? Well, all our learning materials are matched directly to the qualification specifications, covering all of the content, learning outcomes and assessment objectives for each course. And therefore they provide a lovely framework for your delivery. So as a teacher using the iAchieve framework to teach from, you know that you're covering everything within the specification. The online learning platform also provides an alternative or additional way for your student to engage with their qualification, because they can also have their own login details and learning space. We have actually just been announced as a finalist in the Teach Secondary Awards in the hybrid learning category. So iAchieve is a great option to support your blended and your hybrid learning. iAchieve provides everything that you need to successfully deliver your chosen vocational qualification, and it should really take away the difficulties sometimes associated with delivering vocational style courses, because everything that you need is here in one place. So to be clear, iAchieve isn't the awarding organisation, so it's not iAchieve that will provide your certificates or do your moderation. iAchieve is an online digital classroom that supports the delivery of your qualifications. So just to be very clear about that, we are not the awarding organisation, we are a resource to support you with your delivery. So for those of you that have been using iAchieve previous to this academic year, you should now have noticed when you log into the iAchieve platform that the new specifications have appeared on your iAchieve account. So you'll see those when you log in with your teacher login details, and I will show you where they are shortly. So which specifications should you be running? This is really important. So it's quite likely that some of you will be delivering 2 specifications this year, and it's important that your learners are registered on the correct one. So to clarify, the new specifications that were released this September, so just this month, are suitable for your Year 10 learners. Any Year 11s should remain on the older versions of the specifications that they'll already be registered on. So that goes for any Year 11s that start a course this year as well. So if you have any years that start to study one of these qualifications this year, they'll need to be registered on the old version. So that's why you might be running 2 specifications in tandem if you teach multiple year groups. For those of you that have very recently started using iAchieve, you might only have access to the new specifications when you log in anyway. However, if you do want to access the older specifications, if this applies to you, please just let me know and I can organise that for you, that you have access to the old ones. So now that we're clear on which specifications should be used with each year group, we'll move on to look at the new specifications. So everything we talk about now will relate to the new specifications. So just on this slide here, the qualifications on the left-hand side under Year 11, they are the qualifications that you need to be doing this year with Year 11. So if you've already got learners on these courses, they need to remain on them. Any new learners studying these courses, the Year 10 learners, will go on to the versions on the right-hand side. If you have any new learners from Year 11 this year starting the course, they will need to go on to the Year 11 specifications. You do need to be really careful when registering the learners, both on iAchieve and with the awarding organisation, that you do register them onto the correct spec, because some of them have got really similar names. So for example, the new version of health and fitness is named exactly the same as the old version. It's just the QAN number that's different. So make sure that you're taking notice of that QAN number when you're registering learners and that they are being registered onto the correct one. So about the new specifications then. So the new specifications were released this month for first teaching, and the first certification on these new courses will be the summer of 2024. The first exam series, so the first opportunities your learner will have to sit an exam, will also be summer 2024. The courses count in the 2024 and 2025 performance tables, and whether they will count in years after this is yet to be announced. So watch this space. So in terms of the qualification structure, the new V Certs all have one mandatory unit, which is broken down into multiple content areas. To gain the qualification, students are required to sit an exam and to complete a non-examined assessment. So that's the coursework element, or what used to be referred to as the synoptic project. With these new specifications, the qualification is linear, and that means that both assessments must be taken in the same exam series. So that's always going to be the summer term and will be the year in which students are to be certificated. So it will be Year 11. Essentially what that means is that your exam will now be sat in the summer term alongside most of the other exams that your students will be sitting, rather than earlier in the year as with previous versions of these courses. It does also mean that the non-examined assessment must also be completed in the same year as the examined assessment. It's important to note that there are not any resits available for either the non-examined assessment or the examined assessment, which is different from previous versions of these qualifications where you could have more than one attempt at the assessments. That is no longer the case. So learners can sit the exam once and they can have a go at the non-examined assessment once. So on this slide, you can see the details of each course, including guided learning hours and assessment weighting. You'll see that each course has a 60% weighting for the NEA and a 40% weighting for the EA, with the exception of child development and care in the early years, where the weighting is 50% for each. For each course, learners can achieve a Level 1 pass, Level 1 merit, Level 1 distinction, Level 2 pass, Level 2 merit, Level 2 distinction, Level 2 distinction star. So those grades are equivalent to GCSE grades 1 to 8.5. Hopefully that all makes sense as a starting point and you've been able to gather the information from this slide that's relevant to the course that you're delivering. On the iAchieve platform, there are some short videos for each course that explain in much further detail the structure and the format of the qualification and the awarding organisation requirements that you will need to conform to. They're step-by-step guides and I do recommend that you take the time to watch them. They're only 4 or 5 minutes long, but they go into a lot of detail specific to each individual course. I'll log into the iAchieve platform now and I'll show you where you can find those. I'll go to the login page and log in with my teacher login details. So I've just logged in with my teacher details, and you can see now that as I mentioned earlier, the older versions of the courses are here at the top, and then the new courses here at the bottom. So you can see which ones, the new ones, are really easily on the platform because they say new course on them. And obviously still remember to check this number here when you're registering learners with NCFE on the portal as well. So if I click into health and fitness, as soon as you come onto this page, you can see the video there. So that video is all about the structure of the course and the awarding organisation requirements. So do have a watch of those. I'll just go back to my presentation. So as I mentioned, iAchieve is the delivery solution for these NCFE qualifications, and we're not the awarding organisation. NCFE are the awarding organisation, and that means that you need to apply to become an NCFE approved centre. That's a really important point, and I do recommend that you apply for centre approval and register your learners as soon as possible. If you're an active NCFE centre and currently approved for previous versions of the V Certs, so the older versions of these courses, then you are automatically approved for the new V Cert. So for example, if you were delivering business and enterprise last year and now you're going to be delivering the new version this year, you are automatically approved to deliver the qualification. If you're not sure, you can view the qualifications that you're approved for on the NCFE portal, which normally your exams officer will have access to. If you need to gain approval for a V Cert or your approval has lapsed, you can visit QualHub and shortlist all the qualifications that you wish to deliver and complete the approval form. Again, normally your exams officer will do this. I have included the web address on this slide, and we will send these slides out after the webinar. But your exams officer will normally know how to do this. So for anybody that might be delivering the new food and cookery specification, you will need to gain approval to deliver this qualification because it didn't exist previously, and so there isn't an option for automatic approval. Once you've been approved to deliver the qualification, you can then register learners. So at the point of registering your learners onto the qualification, you'll select the academic year within which they'll sit their non-examined assessment and their examined assessment, and that will always be the academic year in which they will be certificated. So usually that will be year 11. Now we are going to have a look in a bit more detail into the non-examined assessment. So this was previously known as the Synoptic project. The NEA is very similar in format to previous versions of the qualification, but there are some key differences. So we're just going to look at those. So the NEA is designed to assess the learner's ability to effectively draw together their knowledge, understanding and skills from across the whole specification. So they can be asked about anything within that spec. The non-examined assessment targets AO1, AO2, AO3, AO4 and AO5. Learners should only complete the NEA once all of the course content has been covered. So you need to cover all of that specification before your learners start on the NEA. The non-examined assessment brief will be released on the 1st of September each year and must be submitted by the 30th of April each year. So it's externally set by NCFE, it can't be changed. It'll be internally marked and IQA'd, and then you'll submit it to NCFE for moderation. The completion time for the non-examined assessment does vary per qualification. Health and fitness is 22 hours, business and enterprise 21 hours, food and cookery 16.5 hours, and child development and care in the early years is 14 hours. So moving on to the exam and assessment. Because the qualification is now linear, as I've mentioned, the exam and assessment, the exam, is sat at the end of the course in the summer term of year 11. For each subject, the exam is 90 minutes and it covers AO1, AO2 and AO3. To reiterate, learners do not have a second opportunity to sit the exam anymore. So if you have been delivering this previously, any of these courses previously, you'll be used to students having 2 attempts at the external assessment. That is not the case anymore. They just have the one opportunity to sit the exam, and that's at the end of the course. So very shortly, I'm going to go back into the iAchieve platform and show you some of the new iAchieve materials. If you've been using iAchieve for a little while, you might have noticed that the platform's been updated. We've got some nice new branding, and that goes nicely alongside our new materials, which also have lots of nice new features in. So I'll log in a minute and show you. Just before I do that, it's worth just briefly talking about planning. So although the iAchieve materials provide all of the content you need to deliver the course, it is still important that you plan your delivery really well. And what I mean by that is that you look at the content that has to be covered and the time available to you. So, for example, how many lessons you have available each week, and then work backwards from key dates, such as the exam and the dates that the non-examined assessment have to be finished, and work out what you're going to deliver and when. There is a really good recorded webinar on the iAchieve website that goes into a lot more detail about this, and it was recorded by Maureen DeLonghi, who's a teacher that's used iAchieve for many years, and she's also delivered lots of different V Certs and NCFE qualifications. So she knows what she's talking about, and it's well worth a watch. So I'll show you where you can find that. Just bear with me. If we go onto the iAchieve website and onto the blog page, just a bit further down the page is this webinar here, iAchieve Practical Teaching Techniques. So I would encourage you to have a look at that, because it's a really helpful webinar to watch. Okay. So it's worth also just saying that one of the benefits of using iAchieve is that if you are running a V Cert for year 10 and then one for year 11, your learners will be in different teaching groups. So different teaching groups on the iAchieve platform, so you won't get confused around the content, because obviously you will be delivering 2 slightly different specs. They've got different structures. The content is quite similar, but there are differences in the content. So using the iAchieve materials, when your year 11 learners log in, they will have access to the materials specific to that spec, and your year 10s will have access to the materials directly related to the new spec, so it avoids any confusion. So we'll log into the platform and have a look at some of the new iAchieve materials. Just share my screen with you. Okay. So you should now be able to see the iAchieve platform again. So again, I'm logged in as a teacher. So if I choose one of the new courses, and we'll go in and have a look, so health and fitness. I've got a teaching group set up here. I've just got 2 students in because it's just a test group. There's a new feature on the platform, which is a task setting feature. So if you click on this little eye icon here and click on set custom task, you can set a task for all of your students. So you would give it a title, a description, a deadline, and then you can decide whether you want to just give some instructions. So that might be, I want you to complete Unit 1, Session 1 by next lesson. Or it might be that you actually set them a task, a worksheet or something that you have put together. And to do that, you would just choose File Upload and then choose File, and you'll choose the file that you want to set for them as a task and press Save. And that will then drop into the learner side of the platform and they can complete that task. So that's a nice new feature that we've just added for this year. If I just go back, you can also create your teaching groups from here. So as long as your learners have already got accounts, you can create a teaching group from there. And you can also click on View Teaching and Learning Package, which will take you into the course materials. So we'll do that. So if I go into one of the sessions, these are the new course materials directly matched to the new specifications. So there's lots and lots of activities in them. They're designed to be used, as I mentioned, to support blended learning, hybrid learning. As teachers, you can teach directly from them at the front, so you can use them as your teaching materials. So you're not having to collate resources or create PowerPoints. It's all here for you and you can teach directly from it. If students have access to a computer within the lesson, they can also log in and complete tasks during the lesson, or you can use it for homework, you can use it for revision, you can use it as a class activity up on the whiteboard. So for example, these drag and drop activities, this is looking at labelling the parts of the body on the diagram. So it's the drag and drop activity. If it's not the right answer, it won't drop in, but you could do that as a group on a whiteboard, or you could do it with set as a task for students if they've got access to a computer within the lesson. So the iAchieve materials do cover all of the content within the specification. So anything that the learner might be asked either in the non-examined assessment or the examined assessment is covered within these materials. You can see there's lots of opportunity for learners to test their own knowledge with these drag and drop activities. There's little quizzes in there. There are think first activities, which encourage the students to think about a topic in a bit of detail before you might go on and talk about it in class. There's progress checks. So this one, for example, is one that students have to type their own answer into. So if we just type some nonsense because I don't know what the answers are. And then we'll press on check your answers, and it gives the students the answer so they can see whether they've got it right or not. We can close that down and then they can have another go at it. The think first activities that I just mentioned, if students type directly into these boxes, it does save into their online journal within the iAchieve platform. So when students log in the top right hand side of the corner, there's what we call the journal, and that's just like an online notebook. So anything you write in here and then press save will store in that journal, and learners can go back and look at those journal notes, and teachers can also see the students' journal and see what they've written in response to these questions as well. I'll show you where you can access that from. So if I go back to this page, if I click on one of my students within the teaching groups, if I click on their username, it's a link, and you can see here, view journal. If I click on that button, that will take me to the learner's journal if they've got anything in that journal. So back to the materials. You can see there's an end of session quiz. There's also this learning checklist, which is a really nice new feature as well. So this can either be printed off and handed out to your students, or they can use it as an online document. It's just designed to give learners something to refer to when they're revising, so they know exactly what they need to be, what they need to know from within that session that they could be asked about on the exam. If I just go into the next session, you'll see it takes a really similar format, but the colour has now changed. So we've still got lots of the same activities, but there's just a change in colour so that your students can see the progression that they're making through the course. So I won't spend too much time showing you the materials, because you can go in with your own accounts and look at that. Just bear with me, and I will go back to my presentation. So to summarise, the iAchieve materials are matched directly to these new specifications. They cover all of the learning outcomes, all of the assessment objectives, everything that needs to be covered in order for learners to successfully sit the exam, and the non-examined assessment is covered within the iAchieve materials. There's one mandatory unit for every course, and that mandatory unit is broken down into multiple content areas. There's an examined assessment and a non-examined assessment that must be completed, and the course is linear. There are not any resits available, so that's just a really key point that I just want to emphasise, because it does differ from previous versions of the V Certs. And learners can achieve a level 1 pass all the way up to a level 2 distinction. If students don't achieve at level 2, they will automatically drop down to one of those level 1 grades. So that's a really nice thing about the qualification. So I hope that that's helpful in giving you a bit of an idea of how the new specification works and how you can use your iAchieve materials to support your delivery. If anybody has any questions, then I'd be really happy to answer them, so please fire away. Jack, does the exam need to be completed before starting the NEA? That's a good question. No, it doesn't. So the exam will be sat in the summer term of year 11. The non-examined assessment needs to be completed and IQA'd and submitted to NCFE before the 30th of April. So the non-examined assessment would have to be finished before learners actually sit the exam.
Will the non-exam assessment follow a similar structure to the current set of synopsis coursework?
Yes, it's very similar. So in terms of the non-examined assessment, did you say? So is your question, is it similar to the synoptic project?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's really similar actually. It's a brief. It covers all the same types of things that the previous versions have, the synoptic projects have. It is really similar. The difference is that there is only one opportunity to have a go at it, rather than the two opportunities that are available at the moment.
And will there be like an example given of of the real thing, I guess?
Yeah, there are some practice versions, some samples on the NCFE website. We're going to put them on to the iAchieve platform as well very shortly, but you can access some examples from the NCFE website on the course page.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome. So I hope you all found that useful. Thank you very much for attending, and do drop us an email if there's anything else that we can help with. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.